I'm Ariana Grande.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo.
And you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Visit bpm.fm to discover more.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Theater Podcast with Alan Seals. I am bringing you an episode from the vault with actor, director, writer, and just all-around great guy Nik Walker, originally released as episode 120 back in December 19th, 2020. This was released after Broadway shut down, right as the industry was starting to come back. And I'm bringing it back now, not just as an archival artifact, but because the themes we explored back then, they felt newly alive back then. You know, like purpose, identity, push and pull between commercial success and his artistic integrity, and kind of like what it means to stay true to yourself in a world that constantly wants you to be something else. I mean, when we recorded this, Nik was already making waves on Broadway and navigating this complex career. But listening again to it today, you'll hear echoes of the challenges that many artists still face and how to build a sustainable career, how to show up as a fully Black artist, and how to evolve while holding on to your core values. I mean, there's just so much going on in the real world right now that parallels this that I felt it kind of apropos to bring back. But since that conversation, Nik Walker's path has only grown more, both on stage and off. So before we jump back in, just a quick update on what he's been doing since then. He's been in theater and Broadway as Sir Galahad and Spam-A-Lot. He played Count Carl Magnus Malcolm in A Little Night Music at Algonquin Playhouse. He was in the cast of The Instigators on Apple TV. He reprised his role as Aaron Burr in Hamilton. Off stage, he's still doing professoring at NYU. He continues to speak about Black theater representation, gratitude, and the craft of comedy. Part of why I want to re-air this conversation is that it just kind of reinforces how the pressures we discussed are, they're not abstract. They're ongoing and they're always still relevant. And there's the way he continues to move between everything he's doing underscores just how much theater artists often have to juggle multiple identities and multiple revenue streams, but he remains a powerful voice for equity, representation, and just bringing community into theater and using visibility not just for himself, but for those coming after. Whatever, I'm going to stop talking. Nik Walker, always a great guy. It is true to, just making art, something we always got to keep doing and pushing hard for. So with everything else going on in the world, I hope this podcast is a nice respite for you to kind of reconnect and refocus. Thanks for listening. Gosh, 400 and some episodes later. But now, everybody, please enjoy this episode from The Vault with Nik Walker.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
Today's guest is an artist, educator, and activist who made his Broadway debut in Motown The Musical before moving on to this little show called Hamilton, ultimately playing both the roles of Aaron Burr and George Washington, but not at the same time. A self-proclaimed cinephile and theme park nerd, he co-hosts not only his own movie-centric podcast called Little Justice, the podcast, but also co-hosts a video series on BroadwayWorld.com called The Chaos Twins. In addition to his slightly unhealthy obsession with Jeff Goldblum, he's also a British cricket player born in 1984. Oh, wait, nope, wrong Nik Walker. Okay. A British graffiti artist born in 1960. Nope, not that one either. Okay. He's an English former snooker player born in 1973. Yeah. Hold on, that's not the right. Okay. No, I got the right bio now. Currently leading Ain't Too Proud as Otis Williams, once Broadway returns, and actually having a birthday just a few days ago. Nik Walker, welcome to the Theater Podcast.
You did your research on not just me, but on everyone, everywhere at the same time, and I commend you for that, sir. I commend you. Well done. There's also a high wire tightrope walker named Nik Wallenda from the Flying Wallendas.
Really?
Yeah. And so when people, I've heard that when people Google me, that name comes up as well. I'm not Nik Wallenda. I am Nik Walker, and pleased to share the first 6 letters of my name with that gentleman. So, it's crazy out there.
There's also an American writer and bank robber born in 1985, but I didn't mention that one.
I love that. Yeah, man.
So you actually, speaking of all these birthdays, you actually did just have a birthday, right? Happy belated birthday. You are 33 now, I think, if social media doesn't lie.
Social media never lies. Come on. No, I'm 33 years old. That is correct. What a scary year, but what a great year to be coming into. Absolutely.
Oh my goodness, I totally agree. But on social media too, that's where I pulled up your unhealthy obsession with Jeff Goldblum, because it's like every third post on your Instagram account is all about Jeff Goldblum, and I want to take that into, of course, self-proclaimed cinephile and theme park nerd. Where did this love for A, Jeff Goldblum come from, but now B, movies in general?
So let me. I'm so glad you brought this up, Alan, because this is a point of contention that I've had with, I think, the general populace for quite some time. So right now, I think with the advent of Disney Plus and Jeff kind of being back at work on various TV programs, movies, all this stuff. There is like a renaissance. Jeff is having a renaissance right now, especially among like younger viewers who maybe are not familiar with his earlier work.
A Jeffassance, as we might call it.
I would agree with that. A Jeffassance. And I think a Goldblumathon. I mean, like, there's so many ways we can go. But the thing, I just want to be clear that I have been on the Jeff Goldblum train since I was a child, and it has nothing. I think there's like this, right? What's happening right now feels very like very hipster chic and like trendy. That's not about that for me. I was Jeff Goldblum. I was The Fly. I was Ichabod Crane. Do you know what I mean? Like way back. Like, let's go back into the deep cuts. But most importantly, and this ties in with my love of theme parks, was a movie called Jurassic Park. And Jurassic Park is, I recently rewatched it on my birthday. I make a point on my birthdays of watching the movies that have defined my life. And really, they often come down to two movies, Jurassic Park and The Dark Knight. And I rewatched Jurassic Park for my birthday, this past birthday. And I was just struck with just how good of a movie it is. I mean, it just is so good from top to bottom. Writing, obviously the special effects, the acting, and Jeff Goldblum is perfect in that movie. He just serves his purpose. It's not too much, it's not too little. He's right there, and I just think I find him hysterical. I find and it also, I think, is a testament to his craft, because the other thing I will say that I find wonderful about Jeff Goldblum, that I think that we in the theater sometimes take for granted, because theater, what we perform in is an auditory medium, right? So we're not, the camera's not right up close to our faces. We are able to, it's mostly about our voices and our stage presence and these other things. But on camera, so many actors are able to find success just by being interesting. And I think that we can all agree that Jeff Goldblum is, if not the king, one of the kings of holding your attention on camera. And he holds it through a myriad of idiosyncrasies, right, that are just out of control and crazy, but he still holds it. And I love his delivery. I also realized that now in my 33rd year, I also have adopted many of his mannerisms, and I'm fine with that. It's just what happens. But it does go back to, Jurassic Park is also my favorite land in Universal Studios, Orlando, right? They kind of, Universal jumped on the train early of designating parts of the park to different movies. I mean, their whole theme park was built around movies. So you had the E.T. forest, and you have the Men in Black Queens County Fair representation, right? And then you have literally Jurassic Park. You have 4 or 5 rides within the park, and so I love that part of the park. Seconded only maybe to Harry Potter World, Diagon Alley, and Hogsmeade. So yeah, Jeff Goldblum, his presence, while he is not anywhere in the park, his presence is certainly felt in the park. And I try to wear my black leather jacket and pants and shirt whenever I ride the rides. So, yeah.
Well, where I guess the theme parks and was there a moment as a child that all of a sudden you were just like, you realized you were obsessed with this, or you were like, I got to go to Disney World every other day, or I got to go to Universal every other day? Because there's people who know movies, and then there's you.
Yes,
and
accurate.
Right.
So, I mean, I love the way you phrase it. First of all, you're genius. And then there's you. You know what it is for me, dude? I will say this. Movies, my mother worked a job where, right, she was a news anchor. So she was not home a lot. And my movies, me and my wife shared this, movies were our babysitters. Movies were the things that, kept my imagination going. And years later, I come to find out, speaking quite bluntly, I have ADHD, not undiagnosed, because I got diagnosed early, but I haven't been on the proper medication for it until now. And movies and stories were very much what focused me. And that's actually the reason to be, being really blunt. That's why she put me in theater in the first place, because she didn't want, she had tried me with drugs at first, and it wasn't, those were back in the days when everyone was getting Ritalin, and it wasn't really being regulated like it should be. So I think I had an adverse effect the first time I tried it. And so she didn't want to put me back on medication. So somebody said, well, theater could help him. And so I became hyper focused on storytelling. And that's remained true to this day. I mean, I really do. My wife always gives me crap. Like, if you tell me to wash the dishes, I'll wash them, but I cannot guarantee that they'll be like fully, thoroughly washed. If you tell me to write a script, I will zero in on that thing, and it's like I'm like an arrow on that. And I think that's what goes back to theme parks, because what I love about theme parks are these movies and stories that I love so much. I get to be in them, right? That's the beauty of a really good theme park. It's why, people ask me if I like Six Flags, if I like, and I do. I enjoy the rides, but it's so much more about the theming for me. It's so much more about stepping into these stories. Before the shutdown, I got the chance. Me and my Hamilton conductor, we went to LA. When I'd left Hamilton. I was in Ain't You Proud, but I actually had my agent put in my contract that Nik will not be here for the opening of the Rise of the Resistance at Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland. And I literally left rehearsal to go do this, and also for the West Wing Weekly final podcast. And it was like one of the greatest trips of my life. But you step into Galaxy's Edge, right? You step into Star Wars land or what have you, and it's these. I mean, truly, I can't explain it other than to say, like, just to be able to breathe in this air of like these worlds that you have dreamt about, and especially when you're talking about the Disney Imagineers and the Universal workers, because they are truly storytelling miracle workers. I mean, not just the sights, but the smells and the feel. Some of these rides, they just push the limit. And this newest ride, Rise of the Resistance, which is the new Star Wars ride, was no exception. I mean, it really, we sat there. It was like me, Roberto, and Taryn, who had played the King in Hamilton Broadway. And we got off the ride and we were crying. Like, we were truly like, that's the greatest thing ever. Like, it just, because again, that's what you want. That's what these stories do. And so I love that the parks can do that. My favorite example of this is my wife, because I'll bring her up a lot when I talk about theme parks, because that I'm positive that theme park is what's holding our marriage together at this point. Is our love of theme parks and nothing else. But truly, the first time I brought her to a theme park was 2012, and she was like, "Why are we going here? We're grown adults. Like, there's no reason for us to be here." And then I took her on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, and now that is her world. And whenever we go to the park, she refuses to leave until we've ridden the Pirates ride. It's like the thing she has to do. That and Diagon Alley at Harry Potter World. She must, like, she doesn't even want to ride the ride at Gringotts. She just wants to walk around all the shops and just take it in, Like, it just means so much to her. That stuff is not quantifiable. So I am very much looking forward to when this thing is over and I can get back to my parks, because truth be told, and I've said this several times, I do this acting stuff, this art stuff. It's all for the Disney dollars. That's the whole point. It's all to get back to theme parks. No, it's not. But I love my parks, man. That's my happy place. 100%.
That's amazing. I want to describe, I mean, just this is a audio podcast, and I'm grinning from ear to ear this entire time as you're telling the story. Like, you are so excited talking about this experience. It's all your senses. And I agree with you. I grew up going to Disney World over and over and over again. And especially, like, I know what the Pirates ride smells like. It smells like the Pirates ride. Like, you just know it's that musty smell that they pipe in there of the cannon. It's supposed to be gunpowder.
Can I tell you something crazy? So there's a company called the Magic Candle Company, and they have taken the smells from all these Disney rides and made them into candles. I kid you not. And you can get them, and like it is. I smelled them. I have not bought them yet, but I'm going to buy them because it is so therapeutic. Like, you're like, I know that smell, and it's absolutely that musky smell, like the cannon. It's so good. It's so good, man. And especially when here's the other thing I'll say. You have to understand, I've gotten very bougie with my park experience. Like, I'm very fortunate to have had a good career, and I save my money, and I'm responsible with my money. I don't splurge on anything but the theme parks. And so when I go, I really do, we try to make it an event. So we're staying at like my favorite resorts there. And like, you see this, like, everything about it is just crafted for your joy. That's all I'll say. Like, it's just crafted for your joy. And it's so cool. It's so cool. And I really do love it. So yeah, theme parks, man.
You know what though? I don't know what your plans are to have children, but I've got 2 small kids, and watching them go through now, they're 4 and about to be 6, and watching them go through now what I remember feeling when I was that age is so much better than reliving it myself.
Sure.
Like, being able to pass that on.
It's the best.
And to give that gift, which I know is going to translate into such great nostalgia for these children, you know. Oh my God. Yeah. I could talk about Disney forever.
Man.
So good.
There we go. That's the point. That's what they want. That's what they want. So they're doing their jobs, man. But it's absolutely right. And I think that's true of anything, right? Anytime that you have something that you love and you're able to pass it, you know, obviously, you know, you have the amazing gift of children, and that is who better than to pass it on to. But I think it's so true. I got to tell you, I enjoy, my favorite memories at the parks are going with people who've never been to the parks before. I love watching them. I love riding the ride, but I love watching them ride the ride. That's the joy. It's like, yeah, you see, like, you can't turn it off. Like, it really is powerful. So I can't imagine how that is with kids, man, because that's just a whole other level of amazingness.
I mean, you want to talk about like immersion, right? Like, kids, their imagination just goes nuts anyway. Yeah. As adults, you realize, like, oh, this is fake. This is a ride. This is an illusion. Yeah. But to see that immersion wash over children is otherworldly.
It's beautiful.
But don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick commercial break. All right, everyone. Now we're back. Anyway, yeah, back to you. Okay, so in the opening little bio, if I have the correct bio, it was you're an artist, educator, and activist, right?
Yes, that's what they tell me.
And obviously, we know you very much as we know you very much as an actor. Talk to me about the educator part.
So, you know, it's funny because the educator has like become official recently in a way that I never thought it would. So when you're an actor, you do, you know, I think, especially on Broadway, especially, you know, when you've done a certain level, quote unquote, of your craft, people want to call you in. So you'll do little master classes here and there. I love a good master class. I love, you know, whenever there was a sign up or whenever it was, a talk back, I love doing that. And I also would make a point of coming back to past educational institutions and like just like stopping in and seeing what's going on. My first like actual stint as an educator where I was like getting paid to do it was so random. I feel like I had shouted. So, I went to NYU, and NYU has the studio system, right? So if you know anything about NYU, yeah, right. It's that thing where you don't like actually take, I mean, some studios are based in NYU, but they have a lot of existing deals with, studios, acting studios in New York City. So you kind of get farmed out. You kind of get the best of both worlds because you get an NYU education, but you also get to experience all these different studios, Strasberg, Stella Adler, Meisner, all these places that are in New York and functioning on their own. And my foundational studio was Adler. And I feel like I had shouted them out on Instagram at some point my first year in Hamilton. And I got a message from the head of the studio, Tom Oppenheim, being like, hey, like Nick, it's so good to hear from you. We're so happy that you're doing so well. Do you want to come and like teach one of our scene study classes? And like, again, I was doing my show. So I was like, I don't know if I have time, but then I was like, oh wait, but it's I think 1-2 classes a week. The classes were on Tuesday and Thursday, if I remember correctly. So I was like, you know what? I can swing that. And especially because at that point I hadn't taken over for Aaron Burr yet, right? I was ensemble covering Burr, Washington, Mulligan, Madison. And not that job is any less hard, because it's not. But I was like,
no, not at all.
Not at all. But I was like, you know what? I think I can swing this. So I started actually Tuesday. It was certainly Thursdays. I think there was a couple Tuesdays in there. Started teaching scene study, and it was really rewarding, and I loved it. And then in the fast forward to now with this pandemic, the pandemic hits in March, and we're all, and again, I've done master classes, I've done all sorts of things for all sorts of institutions at this point, but the pandemic hits, and we all thought it was going to be a couple weeks at first, and then it ended up being months, and then now we're at 9 months and all this thing. But I think it was back in like July, I was like, okay, like Broadway's not coming back. I'm hitting the audition circuit, film, TV. We're seeing what happens with that, getting some things, not getting some things. And I'm gonna, at some point, I would love to find like some consistent income to tide me over till this thing comes back. I hadn't put out any feelers or done anything. I literally, I think I'd mentioned it to like one person, like, I think I would love to like teach, like see what that what's up with that. But I got a text from one of the heads of the department at NYU, just randomly, like, do you want to come be a professor? And I was like, yeah, I'll totally do that. And it was one of those things that I was like very excited about at first, and then was completely terrified about when I realized what I actually had signed up for, because this wasn't.
I was going to ask if imposter syndrome started to rear in, because you're like, all of a sudden I'm going to be an NYU professor tomorrow.
From the second that I said yes, I all of a sudden realized, oh shit, I actually have to do this. And it's not just, right, when you're teaching these one-off classes, you come in, you speak about your experience, and you can kind of relay your story, and that's your method of teaching. And even when you're teaching like a scene study class that's, at a studio, like it really is this kind of just looking at the work and helping pulling the best work out of the student in the moment. But this is now we're talking about kids who are paying $75,000 a year in the midst of a pandemic, right? They're coming to the school. They want the best education they could ever have. And now these classes are virtual. So, the things like I was automatically, and you're talking about grading, you're talking about, conferences, you're talking about like faculty meetings, like all these things. And I was terrified. So I literally, I went on Google and I was like, how to write a syllabus and put a curriculum together. But it was, it was really fun for me, was to break down, especially when it comes to acting, right? When it comes to acting and that craft, you get to all of a sudden go back and break down what your process is, right? Because you do this a certain number of times, and your process is something that you don't think about anymore because it's just what you do. And I the first thing I did was I went back and I actually went back to class. There's this amazing acting coach named Ted Slabersky, who is a film and television guy. And he, is just a wonderful, wonderful coach. And we did some one-on-one classes all through the summer, just to prepare. And then I also went back to like the studios that I love. So I went back to Adler, sat in on a class there, went back to Classical, which is another studio at NYU. My buddy Ryan Garcia is an amazing actor and voice actor and teacher here in Cali, where I am now. And I sat in on one of his classes. So I just tried to absorb everything I could just about how teachers teach this, really. And what my class became, I think, was the thing that I knew I wanted to combat, speaking candidly and not trying to piss off any acting schools. But what I will say, I think that what we have to get rid of in acting school is the idea of performance, because you're not in performance. You are absolutely 100% in a safe rehearsal space. And I don't care how talented you are. You know what I mean? Like, that's not why I'm here to teach you. I'm here to help you find tools that bring your talent out of you. So, the biggest thing I said on my syllabus was like, we're actually not going to be doing full scenes. I don't want you in costume. I want you in clothes that you would wear if you were auditioning for this. And we're going to take this beat by beat by beat. So I think especially at the beginning there, my classes got very frustrated with me because I was like, yeah, we're not going to do the full scenes. Like if I don't believe the truth of what you're saying, we're going to stop and we're going to look at that line and we're going to look at what you're trying to do with that line. And like breaking it down to the word, like specific, like really like, because I think that's the other thing that my background as a writer helps with, is understanding that like every word that writer put on the page is a word they intended to put on the page. So none of this is just throwaway. Everything is a choice. Every single point of this is a choice. And how can I help you best? It's not even about the right choice. What is the choice that you want to make? And that's something that I got from Ted, was talking about, particularly with TV and film, but I think with theater too. I think that we get stuck in this trap as theater actors because we so often have so long to rehearse, right? We have 6 weeks to put up a show. Maybe even more than that. So we have all this time to use the character. But when you have this audition and it's 20 pages worth of sides and you're coming in with 2 days prep and you want to walk in as ready as possible, what are the questions you need to be asking yourself so that it can look like you've had 6 weeks with this? And so much of it is about, what do you want to do? Stop worrying about getting it right. Just worry about, there's words on a page and there's a character on a page. What do you want to do with this character? And that also helps because there's 20,000 people who are going to be auditioning for this role. So the only thing you have that separates you from them is you. That's it. So helping them find the individual choices, helping them get specific about those choices, really treating it like training wheels. And I actually, the better metaphor is ankle weights, right? I put the ankle weights on them, but true, like if they're like a basketball player, right? I'm holding them back, right? I'm saying, nope, try it again. Nope, go back. Nope, go back. So that when I do release them, they're like a rocket, right? That's the idea. And I think it's working. I mean, I don't want to, give my students tea, but I'm proud of their work. I really am proud of their work. The other half of my class is a speaker series. So I bring in, everybody. I brought in casting directors, actors, directors, writers, choreographers, specifically people who are in the business currently, so that these kids can really get a sense of what this is like, and also to demystify it. That's the other thing that I really want to do. I think that the sooner that these students, and students everywhere, for any students who might be listening, the sooner you can understand that these people behind the table are just people. They're just people.
I think they want to see you do well.
Not only do they want to see you do well, but remembering that, like, it's it's beyond do well. They want to see you. They want to do well, right? Because you make them look good by bringing you in, right? That's the idea. Yeah, they are this kid. Yeah, I know this kid. It's my kid. I brought him in, and it's been this wonderful thing because I've brought these people in, and I've been able to, this pandemic, I've been able to reflect on, my career this far, and it's all, so I'd say I owe my career to Tara Rubin. I'd say I owe my career to Des McAnuff, Brian Harlan Brooks, Warren Adams, and the Motown team, people who, took a chance on me, right? It wasn't that I was perfect for the role. It was that they were like, we know, at a certain point, it was, we know this kid and we know this kid can do it. And I think back to that now, and I'm like, yeah, man, that's all it takes, is just people knowing who you are, and staying in there long enough for them to take a chance on you. So I've really tried to demystify it for them. And we've had some good freaking cats come in the classroom. Rob McClure, Mandy came by, like all these good people, coming through, and just to talk to them. And so they could have that experience. So it really has been a fun time, for me to see.
That is so cool. And I'm glad that in this time when a lot of people are kind of struggling to find themselves, that you've found a new door to walk through, at least temporarily.
Well, and not to, sorry to cut you off. This is the thing too. Straight up, I love teaching. I'm down to teach for as long as they'll have me. And I've said that, because the thing that I've realized doing it, doing this and Ain't You Proud will be a lot of work. But it is so, I'm rewarded by it, number one. And also, this is how we protect this thing. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not going to be anybody who's kidding themselves about, we're coming back to the exact same thing. That's not true. What we need are people who are passionate enough about what we do that they can reinvent it to the times. They can figure out how to make it work. So that's the investment for me, is I'm trying to give you everything I got, because you're the people who are going to make sure that this keeps going. Do you know what I mean? And that's what we want.
Oh yeah. You're teaching the future casting directors and the future
100%.
directors and choreographers. Yeah. Everybody who's going to want to work with you. I love that you said a second ago about, being in the room long enough to know you can do it, people taking a chance on you. Because I read something that you had posted about being Otis Williams, specifically, that you have very little dance background.
Oh, none.
Right? And so
None whatsoever.
Going into being one of the temps,
it's a whole thing.
That's a whole thing. Yeah.
Going into being Aaron Burr was a whole thing. I was very fortunate in that, they didn't dance me for my Hamilton audition. And I've been auditioning for Hamilton for, back in the mixtape days, and I joined them right after the Tonys. But even so, they were still, I think I squeezed in because I came in at a part of the process where they weren't dancing my track. And thank God, because that wouldn't have worked at all. And it was so funny because I had Brian Harlan Brooks, who, like I said, is one of the people who started my career. When I did Motown, that was kind of my first brush with this kind of concept of dance and of I had, I'd done when I did the musical in high school, we danced, and, my dance teacher there is a wonderful man, but having to dance professionally and be paid for it. And Brian, when I joined Motown, had to really kick my ass and help me find my soul. And he said something today that really hit me, because we were talking about how stiff I was when I came into Motown. And his whole thing, he was like, I realized very early on that you had never been allowed to feel like you could fit in. It wasn't that you couldn't dance. You didn't feel like you could be a part of something. You weren't letting yourself fall into the groove of something. And so his job became to help me be unafraid of that. And I look at, the idea of me doing any sort of holiday special is hysterical. For people who know me, when they saw the Ain't You Proud on Macy's Day and on all these things, they text me, this is hysterical. And I was like, yeah, that's not in a million years. But what I will say, you know, because now on the back end of this, you have to understand when I first joined Ain't Too Proud, and I've told the story several, so many times. So forgive me at this point. But the thing that happened was they, Des, who's been in my corner for a long, long time, they were definitely wanted to cast me, but they knew that I couldn't. That it was Sergio, and Sergio's incredible, and I was going to need some more time, so they actually sent Edgar, the associate, to the Hamilton tour the last 5 weeks. So I was doing the 5 hours of dance during the day, and then Hamilton at night for those last 5 weeks to learn how to dance like this. And I will say, looking back and like looking at those first rehearsal videos, and now looking at these holiday specials we just did, the sense of pride that I have. That I fit and like and fit and like with these guys who are like some of the coolest physical performers I think that we've ever had. I look at the things these guys are able to do, and it's unreal. It's truly James Harkness, my brother James. That man. I mean, he's a freaking legend, and he's been doing it forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and has been doing it at that level forever. And it's I love that I'm able to make people believe that I somehow fit into that squad of people. Especially also because I think that's kind of the other thing about these specials that has really been like a journey for me is like, if you've seen the show, my role in the show, yes, I dance with the temps, but like I'm a 3-hour monologue. I mean, I'm really there to act. That's what I'm hired to do. But you also have to dance. So this is the part of my job that I'm actually the least comfortable with. That's happening the most right now. So it's been a very grounding journey for me to be like, yeah, I can hit this step, and I have fun, and it's like, I will say, not to ramble about Ain't Too Proud, but I think my favorite discovery about Ain't Too Proud. Right. Because when I first booked it, I was texting Ephraim, I was texting Joanne, like, guys, how the hell am I going to make this work? You guys know me, like, it's not going to work. The thing that you very quickly discover, right, is that you're rehearsing this in the room by yourself, and you're doing these moves, and it's terrifying because you're trying to hit them right and trying to get them right. And then when you get on stage, even for the month that I was up there before the shutdown, you quickly realize that, like, it has nothing to do with hitting the moves right. It has all to do with enjoying being with these people to the left and right of you. That's what makes that show special. That's, I think, what makes that show different than Jersey Boys, right? Because some people are like, oh, it's the Black Jersey Boys. It's not, because Jersey Boys, I mean, both are brilliant scripts, right? You have Rick Ellis on Jersey Boys, who's arguably one of the best book writers of our time. You have Dominique Morisseau on Ain't Too Proud, who's arguably one of the best playwrights of our time. And both of these stories are well crafted. But I think the difference with this show is, at the heart of it is Black joy. Like, that's what you're watching. It's just these young Black men in the midst of a crazy, burning down world love each other and have each other's backs and call each other out when they're wrong, and be with each other. And that's what the dancing, because the temps didn't even dance like we dance in the show. They didn't, like, they couldn't, so it's not about that. The dance is about showing our connection and how in sync we are. And it really, I love it. I love, like I'll be walking down the street now and just be doing the moves, and it's fun, man. I'm really, really proud that I could be a part of this.
Well, it's funny because I've heard similar stories interviewing so many people, like big names. They're all just saying, I don't know why I'm up there, but I'm in the middle of this show, leading the whole thing, carrying it on my back, and I have a panic attack. And people everybody goes through this.
Everyone.
I really enjoy talking about it, and no matter what level you're at, everyone second guesses themselves. It's never that kind of insane.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say that part's never gonna end. The second guessing yourself, especially now, right? When so many, just because of necessity, right? So many of us are trying to dabble in the TV film world, they're trying to get into that sphere. And so now it's a whole new set of rules. Right now we knew what we did, And now we gotta learn what they were doing. And even they have to learn a new set of rules because, the way that they did it is not the way they can do it anymore. So I think just, being comfortable with letting go of your comfort zone. I think it's as contradictory as that sounds. I think that's just the constant reminder of like, yeah, don't ever stop trying to have it figured out. Just experience it and go
Absolutely.
Go for the ride.
Yeah, absolutely. There's, some of the biggest business success stories too are like, I got let go from my job, or I got fired from my job, or whatever the case is, downsizing. And then they start the next like multi-million-dollar company, right? Like
100%.
Out of necessity, we are so adaptable.
Yeah.
And out of necessity, humans change and we grow. And I love seeing people who previously, like yourself, didn't realize you have this passion. I will call it a passion for educating and for teaching. And now literally you add NYU professor to your resume. That's kind of nuts.
It's insane.
We're going to take a quick break for a few commercials. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the episode. You said something a minute ago, too, that brings me back to the last of the three things, artist, educator, activist, because up on stage with Ain't Too Proud, you were like, it's all about the love for, how'd you call it? The black love on stage,
Black joy on stage, Black joy,
yeah. And I want to touch on that because I've known you for a while, and you were part of the panel that I had for episode 100 of this podcast, which was you and many others that were talking about Black Lives Matter. This was right after George Floyd was murdered, and something that you had said during that panel, I wanted to circle back on now, if you're okay talking about it. You said that. And something else you said in this interview too was that when we come back to the theater, it's the people who want to make it better, who want to improve it. And something you had said back then in episode 100 was talking about trauma, dealing with the trauma that you had gone through. And unfortunately, at the time, we didn't have the opportunity for you to dive into that because it was a panel and we moved on to other things.
Yeah.
But if you're okay, I'd love to start to talk about that and dig into that, because I want to know, like, when you call yourself an activist, or when other people call you an activist, right? What are you doing? What is your trauma? What's important to you? Because I have found that in talking to many, many of my friends of color, everyone feels different for completely different reasons.
Yeah. So here's I'm going to put it like this, okay? And especially with trauma work, because I think quite honestly that trauma work is at the basis of every fight for every human right that's out there right now. I think everybody is trying to get everyone else to recognize the validity of their trauma. You're born into the world. The world is the world, and you're going to get bumps and bruises. Okay, it's going to happen. It doesn't matter who you are. It's going to happen. That is you have them. Your children will have some of them. You, as the great father that you are, will protect your children and guide your children and teach your children as much as you can, and will inevitably save them from many of the bumps and bruises that you had to go through. And they will, hopefully, I'm sure not too many, but they'll find their own bumps and bruises. That's how it works. That's always how it's worked. And I think that, what ends up happening though, is for some of us have bumps and bruises that aren't just life being life, right? Some of us have bumps and bruises that really didn't have to be. And I'll put it, I'll make it macro. The trauma of this pandemic, I think that if you just looking at it factually, looking at what we knew and when we knew it and what we could have done and what we didn't do, the trauma of this pandemic was a preventable trauma, largely. I'm not
agreed.
I'm not saying, right, that the pandemic, we could have killed the bat or whatever happened. You mean, like, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we didn't have to lose this many, and we know we didn't. And we know we didn't because other communities haven't. And so there are people right now who are dealing with the loss of a loved one who shouldn't have had to do that. And we are now hopefully putting things in place in the system to ensure that this never has to happen again. Because this was the cost of this lesson was unfathomable. And that is a truth that where depending on who you talk to, they'll have their people. But for me as a black man, that is a truth that I have lived with my entire life, is that things that have happened to me were entirely preventable, certain things, and made my life a little harder than maybe it needed to be. And I would go so far as to say, I've run into so many people who view me and my colleagues as kind of the answer to our own conundrum, right? Because they're like, well, but you made it. So what are you taught? Obviously it's not that bad because you made it. Well, here's what I'll say to you. I absolutely have had some success in this life, 100%. I'm very proud of the success I've had. I do not live as a selfless or a selfish person. I try to live as selflessly as I can. And I think that so much of the problem that we face right now is that there seems to be a choice between I benefit or we benefit, as though those two are completely different. I happen to agree with President Obama on his thoughts on defund the police. I think that we do get bogged down in catchy slogans. I absolutely do, because at some point, and Heidi Schreck, I got to watch What's the Constitution Means to Me recently, and I was fucking blown away by her work. I mean, it's so powerful, right? And one of the things she touches on is, yeah, this thing wasn't built for us. Like it wasn't built to encompass. It was built so that we could change it and help it to grow with the country. But we have not done that. We haven't done that. So much of what the conversation is in terms of things like defund the police is if you're a rebel, then burn it down. If you're an activist, part of your job is you have to sell it. And that's what I believe. That's what I believe. But like, it's the question between, are we going to just abandon our post and do our own thing, or are we going to keep trying to exist within the American experiment? Because the American experiment is several different factions. So we have to figure out how to coexist, and we have to figure out how to reconcile our history. And that those two things are very hard, but they can be done. So in answer to your question, how I activate, or why people, I think, call me an activist, I think that I don't mince my words. I think that on social media, especially, I'm very clear about who I am and what I support and what I'm fighting for. I donate. I organize. If this, I have to be a little more careful in these pandemic times because, excuse me, quite frankly, because I have asthma, so I'm not trying to get out in the streets. You know what I mean? Like I do have to be careful. But previous times, if you needed a good demonstration, I was your guy. I mean, I love to engage people in thought, and even now, what I will say is I've tried to use social media as a platform. When I find somebody, because I will put, like I said, I'm not trying to provoke, but I will have no problem posting what I believe on my Twitter. And if somebody who sees that tweet or that Instagram post or whatever has a problem with it, right, and they want to troll it, I am not the person who's gonna have like a fisticuffs fight with them on these platforms, right? That's not what the platform is best used for. Now, what I do is I say, hey, person, I find what you're saying very interesting. I would love to invite you on Instagram Live. I would love to invite you to come talk with me. I have 2 talk shows. I mean, we have the podcast and we have the video show, Chaos Twins. Chaos Twins probably better suited for it because, Little Justice, we're just assholes. But but I would love to talk to you. My thing is, I'm coming from facts. I'm coming from numbers. So often the people who want to troll me on this thing, you're not going to come at me with numbers because your numbers aren't serving your argument. Governor Cuomo said something today about the idea of flip-flopping, contradicting yourself in the pandemic. The idea that what he was doing now, is contradictory to what he might have done, 5-6 months ago. And he made the point of like, I'm not here to stand, bullishly strong on a platform. I'm here to follow the science and the facts. And here's the thing. I don't agree with Cuomo on several of his policies. There's like a lot of his policies that I don't agree with how often he kind of allows the police to run roughshod over certain communities in this state. Like there's several things that he does that I don't agree with. But what I can't disagree with is how he's handled the pandemic. He's handled it from facts. That's what I do. I look at the numbers. I look at the facts. Somebody came to me and they talked about, they wanted to have a conversation about Donald Trump, and they were saying that, Donald Trump had done more. It's the classic thing that was circulating around, at least in my circles, the rumor that Donald Trump had done more for the Black community than anyone since President Lincoln. And their biggest signpost of this was the First Step Act, right, in which Donald Trump cut down on prison time for Black men in prisons and was giving them help to get out of prison faster through classes they could take and jobs they could find outside of prison. Now this is great. That's a great thing. I think like it was either 30,000 or 300,000 men out of prison early, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Until you consider the fact that it's a half measure, because Donald, you're getting them out faster, but you're not looking at what got them in there in the first place. So they're still going in. You're just getting them out faster, and you're doing it to service your kind of, being quite bluntly, capitalist machine, right? You're putting them to the workforce. It's not about their mental health. It's not about their physical health. And on top of that, you are still not giving the prisons funding. So the classes that they need to be taking to qualify for getting out of prison, they're not able to take those classes because the prisons are still underfunded and understaffed. So to me, activism is simply a matter of knowing the facts and speaking on those facts. I think what makes it dangerous right now is that people seem to be able to choose their facts, which that is another thing that I'm trying to fight. And if you want to call me an activist for it, call me an activist. But there are facts. There are absolute truths. There are things that are quantifiable. Now, I'm a religious person. I'm a spiritual person. I believe in God. I have faith in things I cannot see. Right? I don't impose my faith on other people, but that's my faith. That said, I still believe in science and facts. There are the things that we are able to say we know, and in terms of leading a community of people, I don't know what else you want. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what you have to do. It really is this kind of crazy time. So I think that in short, what I've tried to do is make my I hate the freaking word brand. I think it is so disgusting, but make my spaces, any space that I inhabit, be virtual or in person, or career wise, my voice. Thank you. See, this is why you're the host of this thing, because you have those voices. But use my voice to just be a place of truth. I'm not, I'm not going to not say what I believe, and I'm not going to not apologize when I'm wrong. I think that's another form of activism too, is just admitting when you said something off or when you weren't right. You mean like right now we are in such a radicalized place that's so much, the most radical thing you can do is be an honest person. Like I think that's what's crazy.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like so yeah, I just try to be honest.
I well respect that, especially in this stage of, alternative facts and fake news and all these other terms that are thrown around everywhere. And it's interesting. You're very good friends with James Eaglehart. You guys rag on each other all the time on social media and whatnot, but he was also part of the panel, episode 100 that we did. And something he said during that it sounds like you're in agreement with is taking it to the micro example of theater and Broadway, here in our community in New York. He said that, he agrees that, we need to deal with issues, and we need to deal with microaggressions and deal with the systemic racism inside whatever industry we're in. But that he doesn't want to tear it down. He doesn't want to tear down the system, because if you tear down the system, then you've got nowhere to work. You've got nothing to do. So you need to re-educate and rebuild without tearing down. Yeah. 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 I think. So what do you do then? Yeah. Go ahead.
No. Because I do. It's, and it's so tough. So I think that it's not about tearing down the system. I think it's about, I think there's two things. I think there's absolutely 100% tangible work that needs to be done in the Broadway community. There are structures. The fact that we don't have an across the board HR is insane. Is insane. That just as
I didn't even think about that. You're right. You're so right.
Oh my God. Yeah. The fact that it's yes, we have company management, but like they are, company management, right? It's the same idea of defund the police. Company management right now fits so many umbrellas, right? Because again, I'll bring it back to defund the police. When we say defund the police, what is actually meant is diversify the amount of work they have to do so that the police can just police and that social workers can do social work and that this person can do X, right? Be specific about what you're asking the police to do. That's what it means. It doesn't mean get rid of the police. It means be specific about what you need the police to do and bring back community policing. That's why, again, slogans are dangerous. That said, back to the original point. With company management, they're not social workers. They're not therapists. They're not, you know what I mean? Like they are there to help the policing, and not the policing, but the organization of the show. But they already have so many things to do. They are the buffer between the producers and the actors and the crew and the everybody. Do you mean like you're going to add HR on top of that? No, you actually need an HR department. So there are absolutely tangible things that we need to do on Broadway. Also, the other part of this, and this is why I do agree with James, I don't think you tear Broadway down. I think that we need to start valuing other artistic forms or other artistic venues. Understand that Broadway is commercial theater. That's what Broadway is. Here's the thing. I've done some of the most, or at least three very commercially successful shows, one of which is arguably the most commercially successful show of all time on Broadway. Now, I think the beauty of Hamilton is that it was able to do something that was both artistically fulfilling and commercially viable. That is not often the case. That is a rarity. And that's okay. My favorite writers are Susan Laurie Parks, Spike Lee, Quentin Tarantino. I would never expect to see their stuff on Broadway. Ever. Do you know what I mean? Because that's not what Broadway was built to do. Broadway was built for the lights and it came from vaudeville. That's what, I mean, do you mean, so I'm not saying it can't be there, but like, let's not be surprised at that. What we need to do is say, hey, Classical Theater of Harlem, here is $1 million because the work you're doing is incredible. Hey, the public, hey, the Flea, get new freaking management, get those people out of there who are, I'm sorry to swear, fucking us up, but get your shit together, and then let's give you some money. Do you mean let's really lift up, all boats float on the tide, right? Let's lift up everybody so that there's options, so that there's places to go to see the types of theaters you want, to see the types of theater you want to see, right? We do need to see now. Here's what I will say: what needs to change on Broadway is who's telling the stories, right? We need room for everybody to tell the stories, because you are lying if you think that a young Persian family from the Midwest doesn't want to see themselves reflected on Broadway. You're lying, like they absolutely do. Do you know what I mean? So let's do that. Let's get people behind the table. Let's get casting directors. Let's get all the things that we want to get. But let's also not put all our eggs in the Broadway basket. I know that sounds crazy as someone who's made their career off of Broadway, but I also know what Broadway is. Broadway is Broadway, and it's always going to do what it does. Sure, if I want everyone to have the ability to make great art, and I want everybody to have the ability to make great money. And I think that's what I'm saying. Like I truly, me and Sasha talk about this all the time on Chaos Twins. It's like Broadway. It's this weird thing because Broadway will never not be special to me, ever. But it's like the do one for you, do one for them thing. Like, to me, Broadway is that place where you come and if you are one of the lucky few, and it is a lucky few, you are able to build a life for yourself with those shows, right? Mm-hmm. But in terms of it being the bastion of representation for everyone, that's going to take a lot of time. And I think there are companies who are already doing that work who could perhaps use our support more than just tear down Broadway. I think spread the love as opposed to, tear it down. And again, and I will say that knowing that that's just me. You talk to Karen Oliva, you talk to any one of the, people have different opinions, and they should. Do you mean I think the biggest thing that's going to need to happen, quite frankly, as we, as this, there's such a sense of optimism right now, because the vaccine is coming, and New York is keeping its numbers down, and it's amazing. And Biden is going to be president, and there's a lot of optimism. So now we are, you talk to producers like, yeah, when we come back before in September, it was like, ooh, I'm just waiting for that day. I don't know when's gonna, but now it's like, no, when we come back. And that's an amazing thing to hear. I love that. I love that we're thinking about that because we are coming back. There was no way we weren't ever not coming back. But I think that, yeah, now is the time when we start to think about, okay, so we're coming back, but what do we want to come back to? And that's a conversation that absolutely needs to start and doesn't end when we reopen, continues through. Because it shouldn't. Because these aren't aesthetic changes. These are, and I'll do you one harder. You're not just fighting Broadway, you're fighting a system. That's the other reason I say don't burn it down, because if you want to burn it down, you got to burn the country down. And that's going to take a lot more willpower than I think people have and time than people are willing to give. I'm willing to do it, but I'm also a realist. I don't know if you get the kind of groundswell that's needed to actually burn Broadway down.
Don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick commercial break. All right, everyone, now we're back.
And it's so funny because when I was, I'll be the first to admit, if you go back through my teenage years, when I first discovered what Broadway was, I absolutely had a very Aaron Burr relationship with Broadway, and that I wanted to burn it down. I was like, screw Broadway. I don't give it, whatever. It's stupid. Do you mean like I hated everyone that was able to get there? I was very envious of it. And I absolutely have like a spoken word poem in my journal somewhere about how I want to burn Broadway down and start my own thing. So like, do not think that I did not dabble in that side of it, because I absolutely 100% did. But I just think that there's things about it that do work. There are things about it that do work. It's not everything. It's not everything. There's a lot that we need to learn how to do as an industry, but there's a lot that works. There's a lot of magic that I'll bring it full circle. So Disney right now is looking to get rid of Splash Mountain. Okay, they're looking to turn Splash Mountain into Princess and the Frog, because Splash Mountain has, if you've ever ridden Splash Mountain, it's easily one of my favorite rides in the park. But it does, I will say, as a person of color, it is a very uncomfortable feeling, because these characters are all from the movie Songs of the South. And while Songs of the South is in no way referenced in this ride, it is intrinsically linked. And you can't look at Brer Rabbit or Brer Fox without, thinking of, guys singing Zippity Doodah, and then all the kind of uncomfortable, weird places that movie went. And it's just strange. It's always like, me and my buddies, we talk because we laugh it off. You're just like, oh, a racist ass ride. But like, then you're like, yeah, but it is kind of wrong. Yeah, they got.
I mean, it's almost 2021 and they haven't gotten rid of it yet.
Yeah, they got to do something about that. They got to do something, and that's what But that ride, though, don't get rid of the ride. Retheme the ride, right?
Yeah.
The drop is the drop. That Splash Mountain drop, but it's beautiful. I don't need you to get rid of the drop. I don't need you to get rid of the flume. I don't need you to get rid of like going down into like the darker and darker levels. Figure that out with Princess and the Frog, but you don't got to get rid of the ride. The ride functions, and that's my argument about Broadway. Is Broadway? There's something about Broadway that is unlike, for all of our craziness, and we are crazy on Broadway. We are also there is something about the fact that we truly, and this is not to crush anyone's Broadway dreams, so many of the shows that you love were built on duct tape and a dream, y'all. Duct tape and a dream. And that's you just realize this did not have to happen. This show that I love probably came close to not happening. Like we're just so, because we're artists and we're emotions and we're not that's why we need HR. We need administration. Like we do need regulation in Broadway. But there is something wonderful about that. And I would never want to just get rid of that. And that's not what anybody's talking about to begin with. But I just think don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like really, really look about what we want to keep and what needs to change. And then if an incremental systemic change happens, then you won't have to burn it down, because then it will be just the things that no longer serve you. Every couple of years, you say, no, we get rid of it. And that's what should have been happening with the country, but it wasn't. So yes, now you have to do something more drastic. Broadway is not that old yet. Do you know what I mean? Broadway, I think you can find ways to work with what you got, because Broadway is truly a relatively in the span of even the country and the world is a truly new phenomenon. Well,
there's bringing it back to something I said earlier. There's a lot of innovation and a lot of adaptation humans, of course, have to do right now. And I think coming out of this, of course, there's going to be some producers or some owners or some whoever it is on the higher echelons of the business side of show business that, of course, make it hard for the rest of us. But I truly think that coming out of this, it's going to really highlight the people who want to make good trouble, right?
Yes.
Just, as John Lewis is saying,
yes,
you want to side with the people, the producers, with the productions that really want to start caring about something as small. I mean, it's not a small thing, but something previously as thought of as insignificant as like an intimacy director, right? Like that should become standard in all your productions.
Standard.
Yeah. So you've got those things that are added. I think, gosh, it didn't even occur to me until you said it. Like equity, equity, I'm sure has an HR department for equity, but they don't serve the actors that are a member of equity.
Things little, really simple, like simple thing. Like, I think we do have a chance to really just look at our habits and look at the things that serve us and look at the things that don't. I'm. This goes back to your question about what makes me an activist. I'm not going to rest until we take that. My goal is to make sure that we use this as reflection and not just as, oh, we're back. Because here's the thing. It actually can't survive the way we did it before. Not now.
Mm-mm.
Not at all. We're going to have to figure out a way to, because and I'm not even talking about, I don't like any sort of, projections or anything, but one thing I will say, it will take a second before tourists come back, international tourists. So we have to cater to the country and we have to cater to New York. So how do we do that? How do we get, and I really love that, because to me, what that means is you go back to the Joe Papp days, the days of, oh, that orchestra seat's, empty here, give me the money you got in your pocket and take it. That's what we should be doing, because that's what got all of us there in the first place. Do you mean like that's the investment in the community,
right? That
pays dividends. Well,
that's the sort of the I guess we've had sort of steps forward and surges over time. And, previously there wasn't a student rush, and then it was the first, I think it was Rent, right?
Yeah.
Rent was the first show that actually did a student rush, and it was the first 2 rows, because previously there was like last minute sort of thing that was the back of the house. Yeah. But this is the first time that allowed starving artists who literally couldn't pay rent the ability to sit front row in a Broadway show. And you've got shows like Be More Chill and The Lightning Thief and all of these shows that have an audience that doesn't have disposable income to be able to afford to keep the show on Broadway.
Yeah.
And hence they have limited runs, or they close earlier than expected, or whatever the case is. So yeah, I agree with you. Systemically, on so many levels, we have to change. And you've got wave makers, whatever the term is. You've got your Lin-Manuels who are out there just like, well, I'm not going to get cast. All right, screw it. I'm going to write my own stuff. Yeah. And look what he's been doing, right? Yeah. And every now and then the stuff comes along, and I think the pandemic has been a forcing function on so many levels. Yeah. And it's not like all of a sudden Trump got elected and there's racism. There was racism which elected Trump.
Yes.
And gosh, we could go down that rabbit hole for another 3 hours.
Oh, yeah.
But it's it just, to me, like I grew up in a little town in North Carolina. I saw racism. I didn't experience it as a white man. I didn't experience the prejudice that some of my friends experienced that I didn't even know they experienced until like even sometimes recently.
Mhm.
You know, this was 30 years ago, and I'm talking with them about memories and experiences we had, shared experiences, totally different because I was white and they're not. And God, I this is part of why I personally was always drawn to theater, and not Broadway in particular, but just performing. And like you said, again, bringing it back to theme parks, right? You're transported to these worlds where oftentimes color of your skin doesn't matter, gender doesn't matter, height doesn't matter, whether you have pimples or not doesn't matter. I had horrible skin in high school, which caused me my own emotional issues. And, you know, nothing like other people have experienced and other things. But I totally am with you in that theater, when you can transport yourself and put yourself in a world where you don't have to be yourself for a while, is, you know, there's good and bad reasons behind this, but it speaks to bigger problems that we have to address, because we can't live in a fantasy world 24/7.
No, and I'll even push it one further. I think that the major thing that needs to change, if we're talking about Broadway and we're talking about those, you know, those fantasy worlds, is the idea that a story with Black people or with people of color or with you know, people with disabilities or with any sort of people other than who we normally see in these stories can't tell those universal truths. That is what needs to change. That you can't. That we. This is the biggest thing. The biggest thing. There's a Walt Whitman quote. I contain multitudes. Do you know what I mean? I contain multitudes. We have been in this space where for some reason we don't believe that we can be this and that. Black Panther as a movie was both a celebration of Black African culture and an amazing Marvel movie that people of all races, creeds loved. The personal can in fact be universal, but we have to take the step and we have to put the people behind and in front of the thing to acknowledge that. And that's what I mean. That's what my writing's about. That's what my work is about. That's what I want to do. I don't ever want anybody to have to grow up like I did and not see the options in front of them. I don't want that. That's why Lynn did what Lynn did. Do you mean like it's so that I'm convinced that everyone is trying to heal. You know, you talk about trauma. Everyone in some ways trying to go back and heal their trauma. And I want the Nik coming up now to know that Nik belongs. That's what I want. I want him to look at it and be like, you know, yeah, you belong. You're okay. You're here, and there's somebody who not only acknowledges your story, but it's willing to tell it. I also have to say, I turned off my notifications for this. But funny thing that just happened. Apparently, I just got verified on Twitter. I just want to say this because this is how I want to point this out while I have this platform. This is how random it is, guys. I swear to God, it's not like it's not like I've done nothing. I've done nothing. It doesn't, like, people are always asking about like the check marks and shit. The check marks are out of your control. Stop worrying about these check marks. I literally have done nothing. So the fact that's
I'm glad I could contribute here to you getting your Twitter verification.
Well, that was probably what it was. They were like, "Yo, he's going on Alan's podcast. It's time. It's time. Now it's time. Put him on." Like, what the hell? I don't know. What does that mean? There's too many Nik Walkers is what that means. That's what that means. There's too many of them.
Like, you got verified as the footballer, the British footballer. Yeah.
Football guy. Yeah, now it's me. Now it's me. I'm the guy.
Well, I think this is actually a wonderful time to pivot over to the 3 standard closing questions that I ask everyone to end the podcast episodes. The first one, very simply, is what motivates you?
My mom. Mom. She's my work ethic. Nobody works harder than that woman. And I actually had to work to reverse it. In a way, I had to work to find a work-life balance because I saw how hard she worked. And I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. But to make her proud, I'm going to do double that. And I went so far off in one direction that I was like, now I have to find out how to just be a human being. But yeah, my mom, absolutely.
Oh, okay. So the next advice is next question is, what advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now, starting out down a similar path?
Slow down, enjoy. Please enjoy your life. There were so many things, and I truly do think my ADHD contributed to this, but there were so many things that I did not allow myself to partake in because I had a mission. I was like the Blues Brothers. I was on a mission from God, and I was there to do one thing, which is tell my stories. And so there's so much experience that I didn't have that I wished I had, and so much fun, stupid stuff that I wish I could get back. So please enjoy this ride. Please don't let the pressure of making it take you out of your wonderful youth and life. It is so valuable. Enjoy every second of it.
I love that. That's beautiful. Okay, last question is, you can only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want. What do you see? This
is a really tough one. There's one show, I'm gonna give it a build up because it deserves it. So I love Sweeney Todd. I'm a secret Sondheim. I rarely talk about Sondheim, but I will say I like everyone else, I'm obsessed with Stephen Sondheim. But there is, and I saw Sweeney Todd and I was like, oh my God, I like dark. I mean, I love dark stuff. I love stuff that just gets into the psychology of human existence. And that show is so many layers of wonderful, wickedly, deliciously funny, dark stuff. But then I saw Assassins, and it's not. I wouldn't even say Assassins is my favorite show. I just find Assassins. If I am ever lucky enough to put a musical on stage, I want it to hit like Assassins. I want it to have that visceral punch of like. Assassins is my perfect type of theater because it's the theater that I was raised on. I was, in Boston. Grew up on these fringe theater companies that love to do edgy, provocative work. And my aesthetic very much became putting people who should not be in a room together and shaking the room up. And that's Assassins, right? It's literally just these people who truly just want to be part of this country, but have been pushed so far down that they only have one option available to them. And I just find it so haunting and beautiful and funny and weird. And I just love it. And I also love that, like, it's not, you can always tell a show that I love because it'd be very hard to do fan art about it. If you can do fan art about a show, it's generally not a show that I like, that I love. But it's just like, kind of like, you're not going to do fan art about. So I mean, maybe you would do fan art about Sweeney Todd. Like, go for it, please. But like Assassins, it's a play. It's a play that just happens to have some songs, and I love that. I just
that's awesome.
It's a wonderland. Yeah. Assassins.
Okay, so there's one more question that I just thought of because it's you.
Please.
Now you can only see one movie the rest of your life. What do you see?
Don't do that to me, you son of a bitch. Oh, you know what? I will. I'll say. Because I've seen Jurassic Park so many times. I'm gonna let that go. I've seen The Dark Knight so many times. I'm gonna let that go. Pulp Fiction. It's got to be Pulp Fiction. I just. It's just such a. I just love. I love genre, and I love those performances are killer. And it's just one of those movies. It's like a Hamilton where everything just came together perfectly. It just fits and it shouldn't work, but it works. And by it working, it is a commentary on every other movie that was being made at that time. It literally is like a laugh in the face of like, I figured out how to do something that none of y'all could figure out how to do. And I love that. I could watch that movie over and over and over. Pulp Fiction. Yeah.
Now I think I know what I'm watching tonight.
Yes.
I haven't seen that in years. Years.
The
All right.
best. Yeah.
All right. Well, where can we find you on social media now that you've been verified?
Now I've been verified on Twitter. Oh my God. Send the papes. Send the papers. No, so yeah, I'm on both Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Nikki Walks, NIKKYWALKS. Chaos Twins is on Broadway World, and that is usually every other Wednesday at 4 p.m. This week is actually going to be on Tuesday. Tomorrow we're actually doing. I'm sure it will be after this podcast has come out, but we will have interviewed Norm Lewis. So that will be a fun one, and then it's gonna be blessed, and then the Little Justice is currently on the Broadway Podcast Network, and you can listen to episodes 1 through 25. We're stacking them up, folks. We're going. So
fun.
Yeah, it's a fun little thing.
You can get more of me at thetheaterpodcast.com. Please show your support for the podcast at thetheaterpodcast.com/Patreon. That's Patreon. You can get me on Instagram and Twitter at theater_podcast. Please leave a rating and a review wherever you are listening. This has been edited by Matthew Hendershot. The intro and outro music is by Jukebox the Ghost.
Thank you. This has been so much fun. So much.
I'm so honored to have been on this wonderful podcast, Alan. You are a gem, sir.
I really appreciate everything and your honesty, and you are such a genuine human being. We need so many more of you in this world.
Oh, thanks, pal. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.